Welcome back to the Impact Driven Leader Podcast. This is your host, Tyler Dickerhoff. So glad you're here. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube, hi, good to see you. If you're listening wherever you're listening to podcasts, man, I am excited that you downloaded today's episode. Excited to talk with my friend, Jeremy Weber. Jeremy, I've known now for several years. You're going to hear in a moment. He is with the group Brand Builders Group, organizations that he is co-founder of, that I've been a client with for now 5 years. And 4 or 5 years, something like that. I don't know. COVID, that thing happened, and it's really hard to tell time frame. But today we talk about the value of a leader being known. Being known really is important, not only in leadership, but in sales and in every other organization. But the key, as I learned through the process of being known by others, really comes down to knowing who you are yourself, first and foremost. And it ties into this component of leadership and development. You're going to hear what brought this conversation to light, why we decided to have this conversation, why I believe actually so many of you are going to get tremendous value out of this conversation. I'm excited for Jeremy to share with you. He gives you a few offers where you can maybe even go spend some time with him to help answer some of the questions that I am so wildly grateful that I took a day and a half, 2 days. And at the encouragement of my friend John Rulin, which you're going to hear about in a second as well, to go and spend some time. And really, it started this journey. So thank you for tuning in. As always, thank you for those that rate and review this show. I just read a recent review, and it's heartwarming, it's encouraging, and it's also, I'm thankful that people are getting value out of conversations with really impactful people such as Jeremy Weber. As well, one last reminder, you can watch on YouTube if you're not already watching there. Subscribe to the channel. You'll get so much more content, my thought of the day, really leading up to a lot of this content that's released in the episode. So I'll catch up with you at the end. We'll recap, go through a few other things. Here's my conversation with Jeremy Weber. Man, Jeremy, I'm excited to chat with you. As I open this up, as I start, having this conversation, I want to say that it's fun having these conversations with people that have, tremendous values and strength and ability, uniqueness, that we've now known each other for, I think, 4 or 5 years, going back in kind of my advent into where I'm at today. You were there at one of those, first couple discussions. So I'm going to tap into that a little bit. But man, I'm excited to talk to you. A founding member, brand strategist at the Brand Builder Group, a company that I have been a client of for, I think it's going on 4 years now.
We go way back, man.
Yeah, it's been that long, but you are now my brand strategist. I've worked with you now a couple months and had other great team members, and you're kind of coming into a season where you can exercise your strength for what I'm doing the best. But let's go back and kind of explain to the audience listening, how does this idea of even personal brand fit into leadership?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question, and I think I usually like to start with just like getting clear on what is a personal brand, period, and then we can, because if you're confused at that level, you're definitely going to be confused as we connect the dots into how it applies to leaders. So just to kind of set the record straight, I mean, I think most people think of personal branding as, hey, it's my social media strategy, or hey, it's if I want to be a speaker or an author or one of these online influencers, right? Those are what, personal brands are. And the reality is that those are, ways to monetize a personal brand, right? And social media would be part of how you drive more awareness of your personal brand. But they are not a personal brand, right? They're like these micro sub-elements. And so a personal brand is you, right? It's who you are. It's you as the individual. And we also like to think of your personal brand as your reputation. It's like, what do people think about when they think of you? And you can have a big positive reputation, right? You can have a big negative reputation. We know those people, right? We often don't like them. You can have a small reputation. You can have a positive one, a small negative run. At the end of the day, right, it's, when we break down a personal brand or really a reputation, there's two factors. We call it the reputation formula. Results times reach equals your reputation. And if you look at those two independent elements, those are what really inform, having a big positive reputation, big negative reputation, whatever. So if you think about results, what do you do and are you great at it, right? There's some people that try to do stuff and they're not great at it, and they deliver bad results for people. And naturally that gives you a bad reputation. And if you have a lot of people that know you for that, you have a lot of reach, then you would have a big negative reputation, right? If you do bad work and do it for a few people, have small reach, you have a small negative reputation. Our goal is that you're really great at something, you do great work, you deliver great results, but you have a lot of reach or not a lot of reach. And that's usually clients that come to us is they're great at something. They have a business that's awesome at serving people. They've spent so much of their career studying to be great at whatever. So they've checked the results part of the equation. So they do good work for people, give great results, and they're trying to expand their reach, not only so they can serve more people and have bigger impact, but so they can also drive more traffic back to their business and grow their business, right? So at the end of the day, you got to think of it results and reach, and just making sure you're checking both of those boxes if you want to have the biggest impact possible as an individual, but also as a business. And so as we connect this, and would you add anything? We'll connect this into leadership, but I would love just to give you space to chime in on that.
Yeah, I think here's my experience. And when I started back in 2019, I was referred to Rory, one of your partners, kind of elemental founders, by my friend John Rowland. And we were discussing, it's like, hey, you really need to spend some time with these guys and, get introduced to you. And at that point in my life, I was just trying to figure out, how am I going to make an impact? Like, here I am going through careers kind of before we've gotten to the point now where this podcast was going, and just all the other elements of trying to figure out what have all of my experiences presented in a uniqueness, and how can I serve the world with it? Because that is my great desire. And I think that connection, and where this podcast is, where the roundtable, where the things that are part of the impact-driven leader, and it was all born out of that 2-day session sitting in Rory's basement going through it, is the fact that, hey, each one of us has a uniqueness. And whether you're leading an organization, whether you're a front-facing, famous author, whatever it may be, and you're aspiring to be that, the two are not completely, two different pathways. They're actually where we understand in this idea of leadership. Once you get comfortable in who you are and what makes you different and unique, and be willing to stand there, man, your ability to lead and impact and actually serve people is so much greater. And so to me, that's what I've been able to grasp and feel comfortable in, and a lot of personal growth. And, understanding. I've shared on the podcast, I've shared through different workshops, how I've gone through my insecurities and intensity. And what I do know, as you're talking about, as we develop this reputation, man, the ability for a leader to lead at their peak capacity has to rectify with that. And if not, it comes across what we see in our world today, where it's a toxic work environment. We have this very disingenuous leadership. We have disconnected leadership. And we have leaders that almost fall into the pattern of I want to be heard, not seen. I want to separate myself. I'm going to go be in the corner office. And I would contend that as we've moved through generations of it, I've been kind of sharing this month on our podcast here in May, that people don't want to work for that leader at all. And we're saying that loud and clear. And I think those are kind of the advents, the connecting points.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. And, we have this saying that you're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you used to be, right? And I think when we all know the people that they get out of their lane, per se, like, man, you're an expert at something, you can do great work and really serve people at a high level, but you feel pulled, right, to get into other things, and then naturally you're not as good at them, you can't deliver at a high level, and things start to break down. And so that's what, like you said, a big part of your journey with us is, what is that uncopyable uniqueness about you? Like, and how do we help you get clear on it? So it's like, man, this is what I am great at, and this is what I am most powerfully positioned to do to have the biggest impact possible on the people that I'm most best positioned to serve and impact in a positive way. And then when you get clear on that, then naturally the work you do day in and day out to sharpen and get better at your craft means you're only getting better, right? At a more elite level versus diluted focus and diluted results, right? Being average at a bunch of stuff. And then what's so awesome, right? I'm kind of tying some of this back to the reputation formula. So what does that focus do? It lets you deliver even better results. And then what you say is, I see the impact of what I'm doing. Like I've been gifted with these capabilities, like whatever, I'm focused on being great at them. I see the impact it has on people I'm serving. And you get to a point where you can't help but be convicted to want to share your expertise, your results with more people. And that's that reach side of the equation. And Tyler, I think you were saying that it's like, when you came, it's like, what is my uniqueness and how I feel? And what you're doing now is you're doing all these different things so you can take your expertise and deliver it to more people through more mechanisms and have bigger impact, right? And part of it, is to make money, but at the end of the day, the core of what drives you is, the positive impact that the work you do has on real individuals, and it's a waste of your time on this earth if you don't give everything you can to try to just share your knowledge, even if it's just free content, right? Yeah. But I think that's where, when we look at how this applies to leaders, it's, you got to get clear on, like, why do you do what you do, right? And make this personal. And when it becomes personal and you're creating like real authentic connections with the work you do and the people you're serving, right? Some people may be in leadership roles of driving new business into the company, but I think what's interesting is we have some clients that are high level leaders in multi-billion-dollar companies. One in particular, and he leads a team. This guy leads a team of like 1,600 people, so it's a huge company. And so when we talk to him about, hey, what can we do to try to help you become more well known and create more trust or more connection with the people that you need to be more well known by, we started typically thinking about, hey, attracting new prospects, building tighter relationships with strategic partners. Those are typically the types of people we're working with that are externally focused. But for him, he was like, man, I don't care about them. Who I'm focused on is the 1,600 people that I'm trying to inspire to do great work each and every day. And so it's a productivity and retention play for him, because we all know that if you can spend one-on-one time with people, like, you can really get to know them and you can build deep relationships with them and you can establish that trust that's required to get them to do great work for you. But the more people you're leading, you don't have time to be one-on-one with everybody. So what are you doing both offline and online to become more well-known and, like what we like to say, kind of build trust at scale through having a well-known kind of like influential personal brand? And all of it goes back to, like, you got to be great at what you do. Like, if you're not good at that, you got a fundamental issue. Yeah. But then what are we doing to help you reach more people with that expertise, so you can have bigger impact and then ultimately use that to drive business results at the end of the day? So,
all right, in the middle of this conversation, I just want to take a moment to invite you, if you're not a subscriber to the Impact Driven Leader newsletter, to go to the Impact Driven Leader /free course. You're going to get the 4 days to maximum impact video series as well. Submit you into my email sphere where you can learn more about the Impact Driven Leader community. So now back to the rest of the episode.
So
I think that, there's a couple converging, thoughts and, kind of, let me give the kind of impetus of where this started. We were discussing in our session, an individual in the roundtable, and he's working through right now being in a position, and he was told by his superiors, like, hey, you need to be more well known in this organization to get a promotion, to be in a leadership role. And as he was sharing within the roundtable, it's kind of like, does that mean I have to become fake? Does that mean I have to do the things that all the people do and just, I'll put term brown nose and just always throw them? And my answer to that is no. Just appreciate who you are. Be more comfortable in who you are. And as we've gone through the impact-driven leader, kind of curriculum, the awaken, the grow, the lead, and walking through that and helping him become comfortable and saying, oh, this is who you are and this is how you show up to people, which comes back to, understanding your uniqueness and being authentic and genuine and not try to be everything to everyone, but say, hey, this is what I'm really good at. And, I'm going to be so comfortable in it that I'm comfortable, and because of that, other people become comfortable in it, and you start, being seen in a totally different light. And I think from a leadership perspective, that's more essential to build trust than anything else, especially when you start thinking that leadership is only based upon performance results.
Yeah.
Piece of it, but unfortunately, that's how bad leaders have gotten into positions where we're trying to fix it.
Yeah. And that is that we always like to say, oftentimes the best content doesn't win, or the best results, in other words, don't win because, the person or the company that has the best content or delivers the best product or service is not known, right? They're not the loud one, right? We always
totally.
And that's unfortunate, right? And that's why we're so passionate about the work we do. Like we're intentional about serving who we call mission-driven messengers. That's like our ideal client. So, we don't work with just anybody. We're working with people that do great work, right? They're trying to have a big positive impact on this world through their expertise and the services, products their businesses provide, right? And we're trying to help them amplify them, right? Help them reach more people. And so you're spot on. Like there are so many people, and what I'll say, there are some people out there that don't want to be known by a lot of people, right? I studied computer science in school, and so I was surrounded by nerds, right? I was one of them, right? And the introverts, right? They're like, I don't want to speak on, I don't want to get on social and speak. I don't want to speak at a conference. I don't want, I don't want to be on webinars. I don't want to be on, I don't want to speak, period. I want to be at my desk and crank on the keyboard. And that's fine, right? I mean, you can get recognized for that work and make, obviously move up the career ladder, and it's fine. But I think for anybody that's like, I believe in the work I do, right? I've got great work results. I see the impact, the positive impact it has on people. There's no question that the simple act of saying, I'm kind of convicted to want to just talk about it. I'm not trying to be like cocky or anything. It's just that I'm good at what I do and I believe in the impact it has on people, and I just want to talk about it. And so when you lean into how to talk about it efficiently and effectively, where to talk about it, all these things, how to talk about it, it's kind of like all that does is expand your reach, right? Like all those activities. And if you apply that in a typical corporate setting, right? Like, well, what are you doing? It's like, well, my social media is not some random stuff. It's a tactical outlet for me to just share my expertise in a new way. Well, what do I do at company meetings? I want to be the person that's given a product update or an industry update or something. I want to just talk. What are you doing at the water cooler with people, right? Or, it's like, I'm not talking about a bunch of random stuff. I'm like, man, I'm really into X and I'm excited to talk about whatever. So it's really just like, what is unique about you that informs your focus and your drive to be better and better at something? And then what's great is the better you are at something, the more convicted you become because you're seeing better and better outcomes or results for the people you serve. And that fuels your desire to just want to share it and speak about it. And when you do that, then you expand your reach. And then you become more well-known and more well-known and more well-known. And that awareness of you as a trusted expert, as an expert in some space, is going to lead to only good things. It could be promotions. It could be new opportunities outside of your current job, right? It's good to have options at the end of the day. We always like to say we want to warn everybody, our goal is to not come in and get rid of all your top talent, right? And get them starting side hustles, right? But I think that's so much of the issue is people don't know how to kind of be tactical about reaching more people in a way that actually helps just drive growth of their career where they're at, or the business where they're at. So it's like, well, if I do a personal brand, it's a side hustle or something.
That's the point that is kind of resonating with here as you're sharing, as I'm contemplating, as I'm thinking, as mentally taking notes, is I'm going to put myself in the role of a president of organization, the executive of an organization, maybe that guy that you're talking about, 1,600 people. It's like, not only do I understand, because I sit here and understand the value of it as myself as a leader in how I show up and how to serve people, but I also see tremendous value in it for someone in my organization, like you just said, when they become lit up and energized and passionate and an ambassador for their uniqueness, the organization is going to benefit. It's going to benefit in two ways. Either that's going to help grow what we're trying to do, or I believe this is a value too. They're going to go where that becomes what their focus is, and that isn't bad. It's either you go or you grow. And to me, going isn't bad, because I look at that as I champion that. If somebody leaves, one of the organizations that we've run, I've always looked at it, I'd much rather be an incubator than an incinerator. And too often, I think we fall into this incineration. Well, I want to hold them down because if they were to leave, I don't know. But I think when we're taking all of this into concept, when we understand what you're great at, and then be willing to be known for that, you might have been living under a rock for a while. And that's not how you're going to impact people. There's actually, in preparation for this, I thought of a quote, and I wrote this: those who want to make an impact are willing to stick their head out of the bunker, not for them, but to empower, support, and encourage others. And when I think of this little piece, what we're talking about, it's being willing to be that person. And to me, that's a leader. And it doesn't matter where you're at in the organization. It could be with outward, clients. It could be with inward partners. But once you embrace that, and that uniqueness comes alive, and that focus, now you can start making an impact, making a difference. And to me, coming back to why have this brand impact driven, it's focused on that right there. It's focused on that, knowing if I do that long enough, well enough, with enough authenticity and vulnerability and genuineness consistent, it's going to have an impact. Yeah.
No, you're spot on. And I mean, I think it's one thing to sit here and say, like, when you kind of figure out what your quote unquote uniqueness is, like, that makes it clear, right? The kind of lights come on and you see kind of what you want, what you're uniquely positioned to lean into, and then what you're uniquely positioned to talk about at scale to impact as many people as possible. That, I think most people struggle with that, and they do all these different things, whether it's social media or speaking on stages or just how they talk with people, quote unquote elevator pitch, right? They can't be super efficient with that because they haven't done the deep work to really, quote unquote, figure out their uniqueness. And it's not an easy thing, right? So it's not their fault at all. But I think the point is that if you want to, one, have the biggest impact possible, right, on the people you're most powerfully positioned to serve, you need to invest the time and money to kind of figure this out a little bit. And I think you can be the first to attest to it. Once you do figure it out, it inspires so much action. It kind of gives you more meaning to the work you're doing. And I think what's cool is there's a few stats, right? It's kind of like when you look at businesses, like, should they support this or should they suppress it, right? Like, and you're saying, and I love the angle you take, don't want to be the incinerator. But I think the reality is that consumers now more than ever want to know the individuals behind the corporate brand, right? I mean, that's just the reality. We did a national trends in personal branding research study, so paid a bunch of money, statistically valid. And there were a few, I mean, there's a ton of data in here, but a few key stats that are worth everybody being aware of. Like 74% of Americans are more likely to trust somebody with an established personal brand. And again, think personal brand, that just means they know who you are, right? I mean,
there's a couple people that I think of real quick. I mean, we think about Elon Musk, right or wrong or indifferent. I mean, he is the brand of everything he does. I mean, you can think of Steve Jobs. We could go down through the list. I mean, Dwayne Johnson. You look at these figures and you start to understand, I'm buying what they are authentically, right, wrong, or we talked the other day about Gary Vee. And to me, I would prefer he'd not drop F-bombs all the time, but this is what I appreciate even in the midst of that. Yeah. He's the same person. Every single situation, video, everything he shared, he's the same dude, the same guy always. That endears me to him and his products because I believe that's what they stand for as well.
Yeah, I mean, and so you always think about it, well, am I more likely to lean into a digital relationship? Because as much as we'd want to know Elon or Jeff Bezos or whoever, right? Like not happening at scale. Yeah. So it's like, would I be more likely to lean in and really start building a deeper relationship digitally with a CEO or the Elon or with Twitter or with Tesla, right? Like, well, I want to know there's a company behind the individual because there's some safety and security that something could happen to Elon, and I don't want all my trust to be in him. But so there's kind of the behind the scenes corporate company, but that tip of the spear is going to be the thought leaders, the brilliant minds, the people that are kind of the ambassadors of the corporate brand, i.e. the Elons, that people start with the relationship there, and then the goal is that the relationship personally expands to other people in your business as they start actually buying your products or services. They're interfacing with other people. But that tip of the spear, ultimately how you're going to differentiate, there's a lot of companies that offer similar products and services. Sure. How you're going to differentiate is through the great minds within your business, right? So the question is, what is your strategy to get more of the thought leaders or the subject matter experts in your business out there so they're more well known by the right people, and you use that to differentiate and kind of like start building trust earlier. So one more stat that's kind of cool. 82% of Americans agree that companies are more influential if one or more of their executives have an established personal brand, right? So I mean the list goes on and on, but
just as has that changed? In your research or as your speculation, as you guys sit and verify and your experience previously in sales and consulting and what you saw and your own, tech background, and I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, again, I constantly think about the generational change. It's been impressed upon me, and I think it's from a leadership facet, it is imperative that you recognize that as the trends and, generations change. Was there a point in time here, an inflection point where the personality of the executives became as important as the actual brand itself? And I'm thinking of big names like, GE and Jack Welch, or, you go to Lee Iacocca. You look at these different leaders at times. I think of right now, Delta, I think Ed Bastian. I think of these people, and I'm just wondering, was there an inflection point where people started to trust individuals over the brands, almost at an expense that the brands, kind of the feeling like the brands lied to me, but the people didn't?
Yeah. I mean, what's cool about this study, and we'll make sure I give you a link to link it in the show notes, because I'm glad you asked this. There's the generational component. Like, so, okay, these stats sound great, but like segment them based on, the demographics, different age ranges, and that helps me understand based on who my ideal client is this more or less important to know the individual? Yeah. And at a high level, you're spot on. The older generation, there wasn't really the opportunity for them to know individuals at scale, right? Like their social media didn't really exist when they were, in the prime. So it was like they saw big advertisements from big brands, and it was like, I love Coca-Cola, or I love whatever, right? And so the brand affinity was just with the corporation, right? And so they've been slower to really get on board with the new technology and be out and getting to know individuals, right? But then you see this spike, right, kind of in the, probably 30, 40s, and even definitely younger generation, where more of the way they consume information is on social platforms or through podcasts or going to events. And if you just think about what is actually happening right? Like, I don't care what kind of business you're in or whatever. It's like you're interfacing with an individual, right? Like it's not like I'm working with Coke, right? No, it's like I'm working with a representative of Coke, right?
Yeah.
And so there's always an individual. So I think what we're seeing is that as far as adoption of this trend and really embracing it, is that smaller businesses, solopreneurs, they kind of like do this anyways. It's just like they are the business, right? And then small kind of medium-sized businesses, they're more agile and they've been quicker to kind of get on board with this. They tend to sell smaller dollar amount product services, so they're more in the online game. They've been pretty quick to get on board. The bigger corporations, as we all know, they're just slower to pivot and adopt. And so we have some big multi-billion-dollar corporations that I alluded to earlier that are starting to see this trend and want to innovate a little bit through key members of their executive team or subject matter experts that represent product lines or something. But it's been slower to really kind of roll out. And at the end of the day, they're doing things like social media, right? It's not that they're not on social media, right? What we're saying is, how do you take a more tactical approach to saying, hey, Tyler is a significant individual in our business. We want to have a strategy around how does Tyler figure out his uniqueness, kind of make this personal, but how do we also figure out the overlap of Tyler's uniqueness with the uniqueness of our business?
Yep.
And if there's no overlap and it's a bunch of friction, Tyler may not need to work there because he's not in the right seat, right, in the right industry or whatever.
Yeah.
But more often than not, right, that significant person is working at that business for a reason. They have a skill set, a passion, right? There's alignment. But we have to figure out how to align the strategy and positioning for Tyler's personal brand with the strategy and positioning of the company brand, so that as we then go to market with all these tactical things to help Tyler reach more people with his expertise, it feels authentic to him and you have a purpose behind the work you're doing. I mean, most people don't like to create content for social media, right? They don't like to go maybe travel all the time. But when it's like, man, I know why I'm doing this. Like, I have an opportunity here and now I want to do it because I have a personal connection with all these activities to reach more people and impact more people. So that's going to fuel Tyler's ability to go do what he needs to do to reach more people, become more well-known. And oh, by the way, we're making sure everything Tyler's doing is true to him as an individual, but also strategically aligned with funneling people back to the business too, because the last thing companies want to do is spend more money on getting Tyler out there if it's not going to directly translate to more leads, traffic, sales, whatever it may be. So I think that's where we're really coming in and running alongside your typical corporate sales and marketing kind of activities and agencies to just say, it's not that stuff is irrelevant, like it's still very relevant. But if you want to innovate and really differentiate yourself and figure out a way to kind of build trust at scale, you have to now take a more tactical approach to who are the right people that we're gonna get really ninja about how we help them reach more people by just, again, being more tactical about it.
There's I would say that the glue of all of this, and as I think, okay, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, okay, what if that person leaves? How do I position that, right? Okay, we build everything into this person and they're a major piece of our organization, but for some reason they leave. And to me, there's a way to champion that. I mentioned that earlier. But then it's also before you get there. And I think the great binder, it also comes into listening to this and understanding this is a hiring practice. What are the values? If there's not a value alignment, there's not a value from the brand and the person, it's never going to mesh. It's not going to marry together. And even as I'm married, you're married, there's challenges there. But when you can come back to the values and hold on to that, you can usually work through those things. And so if we're not focusing on values when we're hiring people or we're establishing positions before we ever get here, that's where it goes massively wrong. And to me, what you're sharing is only further emphasizing, hey, values are first and foremost important. And as we move through those values, it's understanding people have value and valuing people to say, hey, you are unique. However you got here is because we appreciate your values. Now let's find your uniqueness, because not only is it going to help our brand, our business accelerate, you're also going to use that uniqueness along with those values. It's going to bring diversity, but we're also going to help everyone else do what they do at a higher capacity. That to me is the challenge of the modern leader, to embrace that over, let me just go find the guy that's the best at writing code. Let me go find the guy that is, the girl that is the best at whatever she may be, or vice versa. Let's focus on the values. When we bring along the skills with those values, man, we can really accelerate.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. And what's interesting is you kind of alluded to it again. Hey, there's risk that comes with investing in individuals, right? Like, and that's legit, right? I mean, I don't want to dismiss those feelings. But if you actually think about how this really plays out, so, and I'll go back to the guy that leads a team of 1,600. So when he becomes more well known, right? Like, priority number one is to be more well-known and trusted by the people that he leads, right? The outcome of that is productivity and retention for his team. Priority number two is that the more well-known he is by his team, he's naturally going to become more well-known by people outside of his team too, like the people that don't even work for the company. So priority number two is that he's able to now attract new top talent. It's a recruiting tool, right, into the company. Right? And so if we then say, all right, now let's apply it to a subject matter expert, not some high-level executive. Well, the reality is, if a company takes a hard line on this and says, no, that's not for us, right? Like, we can't support that. Well, what are they going to do? If somebody feels compelled to do this, they're going to do it anyways, and they're going to have a side hustle, and they're definitely going to be like 1 foot out the door, and at some point they're going to be bailing. So for me, if we look at what are the policies that are going to attract and retain the best talent, it's going to be policies where companies want to help you reach and impact as many people as possible. And they're okay to take that risk because they know that if they take care of you, they support you, they help you help more people, and they do it in a way that helps you and the business, that if you look at leaving, you're going to be like, well, how many other companies out here have policies like that? I'm pretty lucky to be in a position where I can serve people, go speak, have big impact, and build a reputation that's transferable. So I mean, it does help them. But I think if you take good care of them, you're compensating them, you're supporting them, helping them reach more people, like they're going to want to stay, most of them. And the ones that don't, like, you would have lost them anyways, totally. Right? It's not like a different policy of suppression was going to keep them. Like, so I think, like, if you're looking at how to differentiate and attract the top talent, this policy helps. And I actually think while it has some risk, it'll help you retain top talent as well. And oh, by the way, all these things are only helping you differentiate from the competition and drive growth. I don't care if that's a recruiting and talent attraction play or a new lead gen sales and marketing play. I mean, it's ultimately, I mean, the bottom line is it's just a matter of time before everybody embraces this and takes a more tactical approach to it. And in the interim, people are going to be like, I don't know about it. And they're going to kind of lose a little market share as a result of it, which is fine.
Well, I know, and we've seen that. I mean, you look over the last couple of years of the pandemic, the leaders and the businesses that embraced what was happening are thriving. And the ones that fought it continue to get black eyes every day. And employees are just saying, deuces, I'm out. I don't have to be here. And I think this is another advent, but it's also a classic example. The greatest risk is not. The greatest risk to growing your organization is not helping your people grow whichever way they want to grow. Because ultimately, if you help them grow and develop, there are going to be some that leave. Okay, that's the risk. But there's going to be a lot that stay. And you hope that you help them improve what they're doing, because it's going to improve everything. Yeah.
I mean, you can sleep better at night because you know that, hey, I'd help Tyler have the biggest impact possible on the people he's best positioned to serve. And again, there's going to be a lot of people in your company or on your team that are like, I'm not trying to reach a lot of people. Like, they just want to stay in the results lane. So it's like, well, you support them by helping them go to trainings and be better programmers or like whatever. But the people that are passionate about taking their results or their expertise and sharing it with more people, like reaching more people, well, you need to make sure they're in a position in your business or on your team to do that, right? Even if it's an internal leadership role or some role where they're impacting, interfacing with external people. And then you need to, so get them on the right seat, right, in the bus. And then you got to have a real strategy to help them do that efficiently and effectively, not only for themselves, but for the business. And I think, again, leaders that embrace that and do it themselves, right, practice what they're preaching. I mean, I'm excited to see what happens. I think, you know, because I think I saw a stat, I don't know what it is, but it was something stupid. The number of people that have side hustles nowadays. I mean, it's like, you know, I mean, especially with the uptick in remote work and stuff, it's like somebody may have like 3 full-time jobs and I work remote. And it's like, so, I mean, it's like engagement and people actually caring about the work they do and leaning into it and focusing, being inspired to do it is probably at an all-time low. And I think it's because there's a physical maybe disconnection that doesn't help. But I think at the end of the day, you know, we keep saying this uniqueness word, but I don't think people are personally connecting with the work they're doing, right? And if you don't,
that's the great opportunity for leaders. And I think this is a facet to do so, is to pull back the veil and say, hey, this is who I am. This is why it's important to me. This is what we're doing. I believe that leads an engagement. And if it doesn't engage people, then hopefully they're quicker to leave so we can bring in people that are engaged. It's not one of this, well, we'll have to just hold. No, it's drive for engagement. And there are going to be people, you know, that come and there are going to be people that go. But the people that stay, the more engaged they are, the more they believe in what's happening, man, everyone engages better. You know, and does better and performs better. And the idea and concern is, oh, people didn't open their laptop. You know, why are workers like that today? I quickly say, no, that's on you, leader. You didn't give them a reason to engage. Now, maybe they aren't the right people for your organization. Comes back to the value stuff. Fine, identify that. But then go find the people that are excited about what you do because they're out there.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting, if we just dig a little deeper into this, it's pretty common, right, for companies to have mission, vision, values, core values, all that stuff. And I think most people, it's like, it's good to know that, right? It's good to have them. It's good to communicate them regularly so people connect with what is kind of the why or how do we operate as a business. But I think for people to really create an authentic connection with the why, they need to see people in positions of authority embody it, play it out, like actually, you know, do the things. And again, if you just like, if you're not known by your people, you know, like they can't follow. Again, you may not work closer. You lead so many people, you can't have a one-on-one physical connection. If you're not creating content, speaking, you know, like standing for something, demonstrating and pulling the veil back a little bit and letting people really get to know you, be vulnerable at times, right? But it's like, that's going to help people really get to know you and trust you as a leader and see how you take those core values and actually roll them out through your actions. And they may never have to be in the same building as you. Totally. They may never have to see you physically, but they're going to be like, man, I feel like I really know Tyler. Like he's a good guy. Like I know him personally and professionally. You know, I follow him kind of online. Like this is a guy I want to work for. This is a guy I want to show up and work hard for. And I see how what he talks about and what he does, some of it's targeted towards me as a team member. Some of it's targeted towards the clients we all serve, like whatever. That's part of the content strategy. But it's like, you know, man, like I'm authentically connecting with him, and now that's making me want to lean into this more. And if we all know that when you don't know stuff, then you start speculating and wondering, right? Like, and then that's generally negative thoughts, right? That are counterproductive. And so I just feel like the more transparent you are, the more vulnerable you are, the more just out there you are. It only helps, right, with you building trust with the people that you need to build trust with to get results at the end of the day. So, it's not always easy, and it, you know, like it takes work, but I think at the end of the day, it's worth it.
Well, the congruency of all of those is what ends up yielding trust. You know, if you're trying to build your reputation, you have it one way or the other. But if you want to move it to a point where you want to trust and you want to stand it, and this is what I believe in, and want people to endear that, the congruency of all of those yields that. Yeah. And often I think leaders, and this is an exposure to say, maybe you don't understand the incongruency. We talked about that the other day from an outside perspective, my view on some. And I believe that's actually the core at the work that I do, is helping people find that and understand where the incongruency is, and that your insecurities do show, and it does show up to people, and it limits trust. I think this process only helps pull back the veil, as we talked about in one of the lessons that I have. It exposes the window. You know, you start looking through the window instead of just the mirror, and you see all of it. I think this is the kind of the epicenter of that to evolve forward. So
absolutely, man, you're spot on. Yeah, I mean, the work you're doing is at the core of all of this, right? And so that's why we love working with you.
Yeah. Well, appreciate it, Jeremy. Great conversation. I just want to make sure everyone, a few items in the show notes. Jeremy talked about that study as well, an opportunity for you guys to check out brand builders, do a brand strategy session, learn more about the work they're doing, and see how it fits into your personal business. It may be a deep dive, you know, like myself, which I think any executive that wants to understand better who they are, why they make the decisions they make, it's worthwhile. But as well, even if you're just looking at saying, hey, how can I impact my team better? 3, 4, 5 people, going through some of those, you know, the phase 1 stuff, the easy stuff, understanding more your values, uniqueness. I know I've said it too often to too many people, it has been the key that has unlocked everything that I have done, because now I understand better my experiences and how to show up to people. And to me, that has been wildly impactful.
Yeah, I mean, again, I mean, I love so much the work we do just because we're working with great people, but, you know, obviously helping them help more people. And, you know, like you said, that first step is kind of like, well, what is my uniqueness? But, you know, then the question is like, well, what do I talk about, or what content, whether it's on social media or through blogs or on stages or guests on podcasts, it's like, what do I share that's in alignment with my uniqueness and is going to help me serve people, but also, you know, accomplish my business objectives. Yep. So it's, you know, the process is pretty dialed in. It's not easy work, as you know, but it's work that ultimately has a big impact on you individually and your business. So like you alluded to, we'll get all those links in the show notes. But if anybody does want to take advantage of that free brand strategy call, it's something, you know, totally free. It's an hour. We'll just, you know, what's going on with you and your business, like help you think through some things. You can go to freebrandcall.com/JW, and that'll be linked in the show notes. But again, it's a way to just lean into this if you want to a little bit more.
Jeremy, thanks, man. I'm glad we, you know, tried to answer this question a week or so ago and brought it to this platform. Thanks, man. I appreciate your time and I appreciate what you do for me.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
One of the topics that Jeremy and I kind of discussed pre-recording was the idea that trust is so imperative in leadership. And as he described, as he talked through that, you know, we are most powerfully positioned to serve the person we once were. It's why the value of being known is so important for leaders. We're at a time and place where younger generations want to know the people who are leading them. Why? Because they want to know if they can trust them. You know, vulnerability, authenticity, trust, all drive organizations. They drive organizations because if we're not interacting with real people, our radar is so high. And in a younger generation that you're going to hear about in a few weeks' time here from one of my future guests, Nate Chatfield, is that, man, being trusted and real is what they are looking for in leaders. They want leaders that they can trust. They want leaders that are real. They want leaders that can help them overcome a lot of their struggles, challenges, difficulties. I think when we talk about this idea of being known, it's not so much, oh, I need to just go force myself on people. You heard that in this conversation. But it's knowing who you truly are so you can be genuine and authentic. I believe that is the greatest attribute a leader can empower others with. Be confident in who you are. Know what you're great at. And then go bless the world with it. Not in an arrogant way, but bless it because the world deserves it. Again, check out the show notes for all the links and items that Jeremy shared with you. Spend some time. Spend an hour. I can guarantee it'll be worth it, not because of anything that I have promotionary with brand builders, but because it has impacted me so much. It's why I'm able to show up here confidently and say, hey, I am who I am. I know the struggles I've had in the past. I know what they created. My hope is to help others go through that path because our world deserves better leaders, impact-driven leaders. One last moment, I mentioned it earlier. If you would love to be a part of the impact-driven leader community, sign up for the newsletter I send out each week. Go to the Impact-Driven Leader /free course. You're going to get a 4-part video series sharing a little bit more about me and how to reach maximum impact. Thanks for being here. Till next time, have a good one.